My name is Garrett McKenzie, and this is the most painful and at the same time most liberating story of my life. A story about how $42 million from the Powerball revealed the true character of the people around me. If you think winning the lottery solves all problems, prepare to discover a much more complex truth. Money didn't change who I was. It just ripped off the masks of those who were by my side. Before I start the story, please subscribe to the channel and comment below. What would you do if you won the lottery? It was a rainy Tuesday in November in Millbrook Falls, a small town in the interior of Oregon where everyone knows everyone. I had been working for 17 years as a maintenance technician at the Cascade Industries paper mill, waking up at 5 in the morning to arrive punctually at 6. My life was a predictable routine: work, home, beer on the couch watching ESPN, and sleep to repeat everything the next day. I lived in a modest house on Elm Street with my wife Mary Ann, whom I met in high school. She worked as a receptionist at Dr. Patterson's office, earning little more than $1,200 a month. Together, we could barely pay the basic bills. Her car, a '98 Honda Civic, was always having problems, and my '95 Ford pickup wasn't much better. Mary Ann had always been a complex woman, sweet and caring when things were going well, but with a latent bitterness that I attributed to our financial difficulties. She dreamed of a different life, trips to Europe, brand-name clothes, a bigger house. I did my best to make them happen, but with my salary of $2,800 monthly, it was impossible. "Garrett, why don't you try something different?" she asked me almost every week. "My boss's cousin opened a construction company and is hiring. You could earn more. Mari, I have stability here," I always replied. 17 years in the company, health insurance, retirement. I can't throw that away for a maybe. She would sigh and return to the kitchen, where she would spend hours talking on the phone with her sister Bethany. Bethany lived in Portland, was married to a successful insurance broker, and Mary Ann always came back from those conversations more frustrated with our situation. My parents, Harold and Dorothy McKenzie, lived 6 blocks away. Dad was retired from the sawmill, and Mom had been an elementary school teacher for 40 years. They lived on a tight retirement of $1,900 monthly, but they were simple people who never complained. I visited them every Sunday for lunch and helped with house tasks that Dad could no longer do alone. "Son," Dad told me once while we were fixing the backyard fence, "what's important isn't having a lot, it's being grateful for what you have." Those words echoed in my mind whenever Mary Ann complained about our financial condition. At the factory, I had 2 close friends, Bruce Hendricks and Tommy Sullivan. Bruce had worked with me for 12 years, was divorced, and lived in a small apartment near downtown. Tommy was younger, 28 years old, was married to Jennifer, and had 2 small children. The 3 of us always had lunch together, and on Fridays, we'd go have a few beers at Murphy's Tavern. "Man, if I won the lottery," Bruce always joked, "the first thing I'd do is buy a Harley and go riding around the country." "I'd pay for my boys' college," Tommy would reply, "and buy a bigger house for Jennifer." I never participated much in those conversations. I always thought the lottery was a waste of money. But there was something nobody knew. Every Tuesday and Friday for 8 years, I bought a Powerball ticket at the Shell station on the way out of town. Always the same numbers: 07, 14, 23, 35, 42, and Powerball number 9. Those numbers had meaning for me. 07 was the day I met Mary Ann. 14 was the day of our wedding. 23 was my age when I got the job at the factory. 35 was the age Dad was when he bought the house where I grew up. 42 was the age Mom was when she finally got the permanent position at school. And 9 was the number on my jersey on the high school baseball team. I never told anyone about this habit, not even Mary Ann. It was my little secret, my only extravagance, $4 a week that I hid from the household budget. On the morning of November 15, 2023, I woke up as always at 5 o'clock. Mary Ann was still sleeping when I left for work. The sky was overcast and it was drizzling, typical of autumn in Oregon. On the way to the factory, I stopped at the Shell station and bought my usual ticket. "The same numbers, Garrett?" asked Dolores, the attendant who had known me for years. "The same numbers, Dolores," I replied, putting the ticket in my wallet without even looking. The day at the factory was like any other. Bruce complained about his ex-wife, who was asking for an increase in his alimony. Tommy showed photos of his older son's soccer game. I worked in silence, fixing a machine that had been giving problems for weeks. During lunch, while we ate the sandwiches we brought from home, Tommy commented, "Did you guys see that the Powerball is accumulated at 42 million for today?" 42 million, Bruce whistled. "That would buy a small town in the interior?" "Or 42 Harleys," Tommy laughed. I smiled but felt a strange chill. 42 million! The same number I had been playing for 8 years. That night, I got home around 6:30. Mary Ann was in the kitchen preparing dinner, a simple stew with the cheapest ingredients from the supermarket. She seemed more irritated than normal. "How was your day?" I asked, kissing her forehead. "Same as all the others," she replied without looking at me. "Dr. Patterson had a new patient today, a businessman from Portland who came just for a routine consultation because he has a premium plan. He was driving a brand new BMW. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when comparing our life with others. Mari, you know we're doing the best we can. Are we, Garrett? Or are you getting comfortable because you're afraid to try something new?" I didn't answer. We ate dinner in silence, watching the local news. When it was time for the Powerball drawing at 10 at night, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth. I vaguely heard the numbers being announced, but didn't pay attention. It was only the next morning, while having coffee and getting ready for work, that I decided to check my ticket. I took my wallet, pulled out the small, crumpled piece of paper, and looked for the numbers in the local newspaper that had arrived at the door. First number, 07, check. Second, number 14, check. Third number, 23. My heart started beating faster. Fourth number, 35. My hands started trembling. Fifth number, 42. Powerball, 9. I read the numbers 3 times, then 3 more times. I picked up the phone and called the Oregon Lottery automated line. The mechanical voice confirmed the numbers drawn were 07, 14, 23, 35, 42, and Powerball 9. I sat in the kitchen chair and stared at the ticket. $42 million. After taxes, about $25 million. $25 million. Garrett, are you okay? Mary Ann appeared in the kitchen, already dressed for work. "You look pale." It was at that moment that I made a decision that would change everything. I looked at my wife of 15 years of marriage and felt fear. Fear of her reaction. Fear of how this would change our dynamic. Fear of what people would do. "I'm fine," I lied, quickly putting the ticket back in my wallet. "Just a little stomach ache." She kissed my forehead and left for work. I called the factory saying I was sick and would spend the day at home. During the following hours, I walked around the house like a zombie, holding the ticket and trying to process reality. I called the lottery line twice to be sure. The numbers were the same. I had won $42 million. Why didn't I immediately tell Mary Ann? That question haunted me for weeks. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe I knew my wife better than I admitted. There was something in her eyes when she talked about money, a hunger that scared me. I decided to wait. I needed time to think, to plan. $42 million wasn't just money. It was the power to change lives, including those of the people around me. And I had learned that not every change is good. The next day, I went back to work as if nothing had happened. Bruce and Tommy noticed I was quiet, but attributed it to the fact that I had been absent because I was sick. "Man, you missed the best," Bruce said during lunch. "Yesterday we found out that someone here in Millbrook Falls won the Powerball. 42 million! My blood froze." "What do you mean?" "The ticket was sold at the Shell station," Tommy added. "Everyone's speculating who it was. Dolores can't say anything because of the rules, but she was smiling too much yesterday afternoon." During the following weeks, the entire town was buzzing with speculation. Everyone had a theory about who the mysterious winner was. Some thought it was Mr. Peterson, owner of the hardware store, who always played random numbers. Others bet on Mrs. Chen, who ran the Chinese restaurant and bought several tickets every week. I listened to everything in silence, carrying the secret like an increasingly heavy weight. At home, Marianne was more irritated than ever. "I can't believe someone from here won $42 million and we're still counting coins to pay the electricity bill," she grumbled one night. "Marie, the person must be planning how to deal with all this," I said carefully. "It's not that simple. What's complicated about it? I would take the money and leave this miserable town the same day." That phrase kept echoing in my head. Leave this miserable town, our town. The place where we grew up, where we built our life, where my parents were aging. 2 weeks after the drawing, during dinner, Marianne made a comment that changed everything. "I talked to Bethany today. She said that if it were me and you won the lottery, I should divorce you and take half the money. Couples fight a lot because of money, especially when it appears suddenly," she said this laughing, as if it were a joke. But I saw something in her eyes, a calculating gleam I had never noticed before. Or maybe it had always been there, hidden by our modest financial situation. That night, after she fell asleep, I stayed awake until late thinking. Did I really know the woman I was married to? Would our marriage survive sudden wealth? And more importantly, did I want to find out? The next morning, I made another decision. I would gradually reveal the truth, testing the reactions of people close to me. I would start by telling some, observing how they would react, and use that to decide who else deserved to know. My first choice was my father. On Sunday, during our traditional lunch after Mom went to rest, I took Dad to the backyard and told him everything. I showed him the ticket, explained my fears, my hesitation to tell Marianne. Dad was silent for long minutes, looking at the ticket. "Son," he finally said, "money doesn't change who you are, but it reveals who other people are. What would you do in my place?" I would pray a lot and test the waters before diving in. Mom still didn't know, and Dad agreed to keep it secret until I decided what to do. My second revelation was to Bruce during one of our beer sessions at Murphy's Tavern. We waited for Tommy to go to the bathroom, and I told him quickly. Bruce's reaction was revealing. "Man, you need to leave town immediately," he said, looking around nervously. "People are going to chase you, asking for money. Your own wife is going to sue you for divorce. You can't trust anyone now." "But Bruce, we've been friends for 12 years. "Exactly. And as your friend, I'm telling you, give me $200,000 for me to buy a house and start a business. You won't even miss it, and I promise not to tell anyone." I was shocked. 12 years of friendship, and his first reaction was to ask me for money. "Bruce, I haven't even claimed the prize yet, but you will. And when you do, remember who was always by your side." I went home that night with a heavy heart. If Bruce, my close friend, reacted like that, what could I expect from others? During the next weeks, I started observing Marianne more carefully. I noticed how she talked about money, how she looked at richer people in town, how she sighed when we passed by the area where wealthy families lived. One night, she brought home an expensive decorating magazine. "Look at this kitchen," she said, showing me a page. $15,000 just for the cabinets. "Imagine having a house like this." "Murray, our kitchen works perfectly well." Working isn't the point, Garrett. The point is living, not just surviving. It was then that I decided to do a test. A cruel test, perhaps, but necessary. The next morning, I created an elaborate story. I told Marianne that a distant cousin had died and left me an inheritance of $50,000. $50,000? She almost screamed. "Garrett, that's incredible. We can finally take that trip to Europe I always dreamed of, or buy a new car, or make a down payment on a bigger house." "Murray, $50,000 isn't that much money. Maybe we should save it for an emergency." Her expression changed instantly. "An emergency? Garrett, our entire life is an emergency. We've been counting pennies for 15 years. We finally have a chance to breathe, and you want to bury the money? It's not burying, it's being prudent." "Prudent?" She got up from the table, furious. "You know what your problem is, Garrett? You're afraid to live, afraid to take risks, afraid to dream big. I'm tired of being married to someone who's content with crumbs." In that argument, I saw a side of Marianne I had never seen before. Or maybe it had always been there, repressed by our financial situation. During the following days, she treated the fictitious inheritance as money already spent. She made detailed plans on how to spend every penny, called travel agencies, researched new cars online. When I suggested caution, she got irritated. "You promised we would travel to Europe when we had the means," she said one night. "Now we have the means and you're making excuses." It was then that I realized a painful truth. I didn't really know the woman I was married to. Or worse, I knew but had chosen to ignore the signs. 3 months after the drawing, I finally got the courage to go to the lottery office in Portland to claim the prize. I chose the lump sum payment, $25,400,000 after taxes. The process was more complex than I had imagined. Lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, everyone wanting to help me manage my new fortune. I hired a small but reliable team and transferred 90% of the money to conservative investments. When I returned to Millbrook, Falls with $2,400,000 in my checking account, 10% of the total, I still hadn't decided how to tell Marianne. That decision was made for me. It was a Friday afternoon when I got home and found Marianne packing clothes in 2 large suitcases. "Where are you going?" I asked. She didn't even look at me. "I'm going to spend a few days at Bethany's house. I need to think about our marriage." "Think about what?" Finally, she looked at me, and I saw tears of anger in her eyes. "Garrett, I can't live like this anymore. You lied about the inheritance, didn't you? There's no dead cousin. There's no $50,000. It was just another one of your fantasies to give me hope." I remained silent, shocked. "I called all the registries in the region asking about recent wills with your name. There's no inheritance." "You made it all up." She finished packing and walked toward the door. "When you decide to be honest with me, about money, about your dreams, about who you really are, call me. Until then, I'll be in Portland thinking about whether I want to continue married to a man who prefers to live in fantasies." The door closed and I was left alone in the empty house. That night, sitting in the dark living room, I picked up my phone and called her. "Marianne, I need to tell you something." "Garrett, I don't want to hear more lies. I won the lottery." Silence on the other end of the line. $42 million, 3 months ago. The ticket that was sold at the Shell station was mine. More silence. "Marie, are you there? You're kidding me?" "No, I have $25 million after taxes. I didn't tell you before because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of how this would change you. Change us." What happened next confirmed all my fears. "Garrett Mackenzie, you're the biggest idiot that ever existed," she screamed. 3 months. 3 months you left me suffering, worrying about bills, humiliating me because of 50,000 fake dollars, while you had $25 million? "Mari, let me explain." "Explain what?" "How selfish you are. How you don't trust your own wife. I'm coming home now, and you better have a good explanation." The call ended. 2 hours later, Marianne was back, but the woman who entered our house was not the same one who had left. There was something different in her eyes, in her posture, in the way she spoke. "Show me the bank statements," was the first thing she said. I showed them. She looked at the numbers like someone looking at a miracle. $25 million, she murmured. $25 million. Then she looked at me with a mixture of fascination and anger. "Why, Garrett, why did you hide this from me?" I told her about my fears, about the fictitious inheritance test, about how I wanted to be sure our relationship would survive sudden wealth. "You tested me?" she asked, incredulous. "As if I were a laboratory animal?" "No, Mari, I just wanted to protect our marriage." "Protect? Garrett, you destroyed our marriage. How can I trust you knowing you're capable of lying to me about something so big for 3 months?" She was right. I had lied, had tested, had judged. But her reactions, both to the fictitious money and the real money, also revealed things about her. In the following days, our house became a battlefield. Marianne alternated between ecstasy over the plans she could make with the money and fury that I had hidden it for so long. "We're going to travel the world," she said one morning. "We're going to buy a house in Portland, another one in Hawaii. We're going to live like we always deserved." "Mari, we can do many things, but with planning. 25 million seems like a lot, but it can run out if we're not careful." "Careful? Garrett, With 25 million, we can spend 200,000 a year for more than 100 years. She wasn't wrong in the calculations, but she was wrong in the mentality. She wanted to spend as if the money would never run out, as if she deserved every penny for having suffered during our years of marriage with financial difficulties. The revelation to the rest of the family and friends happened gradually and painfully. Mom cried when I told her, not from joy, but from concern. "Son, money will bring bad people close to you," she said, hugging me. "Promise me you won't change who you are." But Marianne was already changing. In 1 week, she had bought very expensive clothes, a new car, and was making plans to completely renovate our modest house. "Why renovate?" I asked. "We can buy a new house." "I want this entire petty town to see what we achieved," she replied, and in those words there was a bitterness that scared me. Tommy reacted touchingly when I told him. He cried with joy, hugged me, and said, "Man, you deserve this more than anyone I know." Then, timidly, he asked if I could help with the physical therapy treatment for his youngest daughter, who had leg problems. Of course, I said yes. Bruce, who already knew, started showing up at our house almost every day, always with some investment opportunity that needed financing. When I realized our friendship had become a self-interested relationship, I had to set limits. The most complicated situation was with Marianne's family. Bethany, the sister who lived in Portland, suddenly started visiting every week. She always brought gifts for us, but it was obvious she expected reciprocation. "Garrett is so generous," she would tell Marianne. "I imagine how good it must be to have a husband who can fulfill all your dreams." Marianne's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson, who barely spoke to us before, started calling every day. They always had some urgent financial problem, the house roof that needed repair, the car that broke down, unexpected medical bills. In 6 months, I had given more than $300,000 to relatives and friends. I didn't mind helping people in need, but it was clear that many saw me only as a walking ATM. The worst of all was seeing how Marianne reacted to all this. She not only approved the money requests, but encouraged them. "Finally, we can give back all the help we received over the years," she would say. But I didn't remember receiving that much help. The breaking point came 8 months after I told her about the prize. It was a Saturday night, and we had organized a dinner at our new house. Yes, we ended up buying a $1,200,000 mansion in the most noble part of Millbrook Falls. Marianne insisted, saying we needed a home worthy of our new position. The guests were Marianne's relatives, Bruce, Tommy with his family, and some new neighbors. During dinner, while everyone praised our new life, I heard a conversation that changed everything. I went to the kitchen to get more wine and heard Bethany talking to their mother in the hallway. "Mom, Marianne said she's considering divorce. She said that with a good lawyer, she can keep half of everything. That's more than $12 million. She could come live in Portland and start a completely new life." "Is she sure she wants to do this?" asked Mrs. Davidson. She said, "Garrett doesn't treat her like a queen, like he should, that he still acts like they're poor, questioning her spending. With $12 million, she could find a man who really values her." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I went back to the living room as if nothing had happened, but during the rest of the night, I observed Marianne with different eyes. She was radiant, being the center of attention, receiving compliments for our beautiful house, our enviable life. But when she looked at me, there was something cold, calculating. After everyone left, I confronted her. "Mari, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Are you thinking about divorcing me?" She went pale. "Who told you that?" "Just answer the question." She sighed and sat on the sofa. "Garrett, I don't know if we're compatible anymore. You changed since you won the lottery." "I changed?" "You became paranoid, distrustful. You question every dollar I spend as if I were a stranger trying to steal your money. Mari, you spent $120,000 just on clothes in the last 2 months. $120,000. That's more than I earned in 4 years at the factory. So what? We have $25 million. What's $120,000 compared to that?" It's not about the amount, it's about the mentality. You changed, Mari. You became a person I don't recognize. Or maybe I finally became who I always was, but could never be because of our situation. That phrase echoed in my head for days. Who was Marianne really? The sweet and resigned woman from the difficult times, or this new ambitious and materialistic version? 3 weeks later, she handed me the divorce papers. "It doesn't need to be complicated," she said, as if she were talking about canceling a magazine subscription. "We can divide everything 50-50 and go on with our lives." 15 years of marriage, and you want to throw it all away because of money? It's not because of money, Garrett. It's because I discovered you don't trust me. 3 months of lies, testing me as if I were a criminal. How can I continue married to someone who sees me as a threat? She wasn't completely wrong. I had lied, had tested. But her reactions, both to the fictitious 50,000 and the real 25 million, also revealed aspects of her personality that scared me. "Mari, we can try couples therapy. We can work this out." "I've already decided, Garrett. I want a divorce." The following months were a legal hell. Marianne hired the best divorce lawyer in Portland, a man named Richard Steinberg, who was known for getting advantageous agreements for his clients. I hired a local lawyer, more modest, but honest. During the process, I discovered things about Marianne that shocked me. Steinberg presented evidence that she had started planning the divorce 2 weeks after I told her about the prize. There were recorded conversations with her sister, online searches about property division, even meetings with the lawyer before she even gave me the papers. "Your client clearly married my client under false pretenses," Steinberg argued. "He hid a fortune of $25 million for months, causing significant emotional distress. My client deserves compensation for this betrayal. It was surreal. The money that should have given us freedom had become the reason for our destruction." During one of the hearings, the judge asked Marianne directly, "Mrs. Mackenzie, would you have asked for divorce if your husband hadn't won the lottery?" She hesitated for long seconds before answering. "I don't know, Your Honor. Maybe our relationship had other problems that only became apparent with the change of circumstances." But I knew the answer. She would never have left me if we had continued poor. Money hadn't created our problems. It had just revealed who we really were. In the end, the agreement was heavy for me. Marianne kept the new house, a luxury car, and $7 million. I kept $18 million, but with a broken heart. On the day the divorce was finalized, she called me. "Garrett, I want you to know it's nothing personal. You're a good man, but we're different people who want different things from life. Mari, do you really think $7 million will make you happy?" "I don't know if they'll make me happy, but they'll give me options. And for the first time in my life, I want to have options." After she moved to Portland, I was left alone in the town where I grew up, but now in a completely different situation. I was rich, but I was also the man who lost his wife to money, as some local gossips described. Tommy continued being my true friend. He never asked me for money beyond help with his daughter, and always treated me exactly as before. "Money doesn't change who you are inside," he told me once, "and you're still the same decent guy as always." Bruce, on the other hand, distanced himself when I set limits on loans. Our friendship didn't survive my refusal to finance his increasingly extravagant schemes. My parents were my anchor during this entire period. They never asked me for a penny, but graciously accepted when I insisted on paying their medical bills and making some improvements to their house. "Son," Dad told me one afternoon while we were fishing at the lake where we used to go when I was a child, "money is like a spotlight. It doesn't change what's there, it just illuminates it better." And what do you think it illuminated in me? A good man who made some mistakes, but who has his heart in the right place. 2 years after the divorce, I received news about Marianne through mutual acquaintances. She had moved to Los Angeles, was dating a film producer, and had spent almost $4 million of the $7 she received. Apparently, the luxury life in an expensive city takes its toll. I didn't feel satisfaction with this news, just sadness for what we could have been if circumstances had been different. Today, 5 years after winning the lottery, I live a very different life from what I imagined. I still live in Millbrook Falls, in a more modest house I bought after selling the mansion. I use my wealth mainly to help others. I finance scholarships for young people in the city, support the local hospital, and created a fund for families in financial difficulties. I discovered that giving money anonymously is much more gratifying than showing off wealth. When the Wilson family had problems with their flooded house last winter, they were able to rebuild thanks to an anonymous donation. When the local school needed new computers, they mysteriously appeared financed by an unknown benefactor. Tommy is still my best friend. His youngest daughter now walks normally thanks to the treatment I helped pay for. He doesn't know I also discreetly paid for both his children's college. I met a lovely woman named Sarah who works at the city library. She doesn't know about my financial situation. To her, I'm just Garrett, the former factory worker who inherited some money from a relative. We've been dating for 8 months, and for the first time in years, I feel someone is interested in me, not my bank account. I still buy Powerball tickets sometimes, more for nostalgia than necessity. Dolores from the Shell station always jokes, "Going to try your luck again, Garrett?" If she only knew, I learned that the lottery taught me valuable lessons about human nature, about myself, and about what really matters in life. Money didn't corrupt anyone around me. It just revealed corruptions that already existed, hidden by necessity. Marianne didn't become greedy because of the millions. She always was, but our poverty masked that characteristic. Bruce didn't become self-interested. He always was, but our financial equality disguised it. Tommy didn't become more upright. He always was, and money just confirmed his character. And me? I discovered I'm more cautious and distrustful than I thought, but also more generous and empathetic. Money gave me the freedom to be who I really am, without the pressures of daily survival. If I could go back in time, I would do some things differently. I would tell Marianne immediately, without tests or lies. Maybe our relationship would have survived if I had been completely honest from the beginning. Or maybe not. Maybe we were incompatible anyway, and money just accelerated the inevitable. What I wouldn't change is having won the lottery. Not for the money itself, but for the lessons I learned. I discovered who my true friends were, what the real character of people close to me was, and more importantly, I discovered who I really am when all masks fall. Envy really corrodes, as the title of this story says, but it corrodes more those who feel it than those who are its target. I saw people I loved transform into bitter versions of themselves because of envy of what I had. And I saw other people remain upright, proving the true character is independent of circumstances. Today, at 48 years old, I'm richer than I ever dreamed of being, but also wiser about the true value of things. Money gave me security, opportunities, and the ability to help others. But real happiness came from finding people who value me for what I am, not for what I have. The biggest irony is that now, with $18 million in the bank, I live much more simply than Marianne lived when we only had my factory salary. I discovered I don't need a mansion to be happy, I don't need expensive cars to feel successful, and I don't need to show off wealth to have value. If you're reading this story and dream of winning the lottery, my advice is, be careful what you wish for. Not because having money is bad, but because money has the power to fundamentally change the relationships around you. Some changes are positive, being able to help people in need, having financial security, fulfilling dreams. Others are painful, discovering that people we love see us only as an opportunity. But in the end, I prefer to know the truth about people, even if it's painful, than to live in a comfortable illusion. The lottery money gave me many things, but the most valuable was clarity about who really matters in my life, and who knows. Maybe one day I'll win again. After all, I still play the same numbers, 0, 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, and Powerball 9. Numbers that tell the story of my life, now including this new page that began with $42 million and a lesson about human nature that is priceless. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. What would you do if you won the lottery? And from which city and country are you watching?